When you're coming to a big retailer like JCPenney, there's a lot of perceptions that you're going to have to face. You're going to have to go in with an open mind when you're going into a retail space. We know that brick and mortar is kind of not the hottest thing right now, but it is something that we've had to work against. In 2022, JCPenney did have a hardship with the B word. So a lot of that is either the perception is that one, we don't exist, two, that we are still on the way down, which has to be the complete opposite of what it is to work at JCPenney right now.
This is Social Pulse Podcast Retail Edition, your go-to guide to solving your biggest retail social media marketing challenges authentically. I'm your host, Mike Alton, and each episode is an honest and frank look at what marketers go through, from awful algorithms to terrific trends and ideas that you can apply to your own business. And now, the rest of today's episode. Welcome back to Social Pulse Podcast Retail Edition, where we're digging into the challenges, successes, and stories of social media and community professionals in the industry just like you. Subscribe to gain valuable insights that you'll be able to apply to your own work and social presence from each and every episode. Now, when I was growing up, the moment we looked forward to the most every year was Christmas morning, waking up to piles of wrapped gifts around the Christmas tree. The second most important moment was always months earlier when we'd get the JCPenney catalog and fight for the turn to spend hours poring over and circling all the toys we hoped Santa would bring us. So much has changed since those years, from how products are shared and marketed to how brands like JCPenney are even perceived. And before you think, oh, that's just a problem for former brick and mortar brands, stop and realize that we're in the midst of the fourth industrial revolution thanks to AI, and things are changing once more. What lessons can we take from brands who've been through incredible shifts in society and are still standing? What are some of the challenges they faced, and how do they overcome them? That's exactly what Brianna Vela is going to talk to us about. Brianna is a Texan native from Grand Prairie who brings her vibrant energy to JCPenney as their social media content senior specialist. Graduating from Texas Tech University with a Bachelor of Arts in Public Relations in Spanish, Brianna has spent 7 dynamic years navigating the digital landscape. Along the way, she's dipped her toes into diverse industries, including sports, restaurants, hair, and retail, honing her craft. Currently, she's pouring her creativity into crafting engaging content for the iconic retailer JCPenney, adding her unique touch to the brand's online presence. Hey, Brianna, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's so great to see you. Thank you for coming on.
Absolutely excited to be here.
Let's talk about first what you're doing today. Tell us about, your day-to-day role at JCPenney. When did you join the team, by the way? And yeah, what does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually joined the JCPenney team around June of last year of 2023. I had come from actually Michael's craft stores prior to that and was in brand marketing. I really was really wanting to get into the social space again. I think that was where my passion lied. And I will say when I graduated college, I went and did social media and I loved it. Thought it was great, but I did take some time away from social media to learn a couple of other things. So I did brand marketing, I did a couple of email positions and responsibilities, even event marketing. So I'm fully into this marketing industry, and so I really loved and wanted to get back to social. So I decided to go back to my roots and go with another retailer that was not arts and crafts. I love arts and crafts, but it was there's a there's an added element to arts and crafts where you have to be creative, but there's that you're in a box. You're in a box that is like you have to come up with multiple ideas for arts and crafts when it comes to marketing. You got to be extra creative, which
Yeah.
I love it. I am, but like I said, arts and crafts is not really my thing. So I went on and I was like, well, let me go to like an actual retailer, like clothes, fashion, that's where I align my interest. And so I had actually a friend that that was ready to kind of bring me in. So I went to JCPenney, and I will say it's been one of the best experiences job-wise that I've had. My managers are great, leadership is great. I mean, I've truly been really, really happy. But my day-to-day really does it looks different every day. For the most part, I am planning, I'm strategizing, I am fully creating content. I am fostering partnerships and collaborations where we go. And honestly, it's been such a great learning experience. And honestly, I'm so grateful for it.
Love it. I love that you have such a broad background in marketing. You're not like in this sole pillar of social media marketing because that makes it easier for you to collaborate because you're able to better communicate and understand what other departments are doing and what
Absolutely.
other external collaborators are doing. And it's funny you mentioned Michaels. Most of you listening don't know that I do have retail experience, not with Michaels, but with a pool and spa company that took over a former Michaels. So you imagine that giant box warehouse like experience of Michaels. Well, we emptied it and filled it up with a couple spools and a bunch of pools and a bunch of hot tubs, and that was my big taste of retail. But we're talking about J.C. Penney's here, and I know things have changed over the years for J.C. Penney in a lot of ways, good and bad. But their brand perception has changed. I want to talk about that. What have some of the other challenges been for you because of that, and what else has the brand faced in recent years?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, for being with the company for what I think almost a year now, I've learned a lot about retail brand perception. And there's definitely I've definitely worked with brands that, aren't the biggest in the sense. Like I have background also in small business marketing as well. And so when you're coming to a big retailer like JCPenney, there's a lot of say like perceptions that you're gonna have to face. And that's just like being a customer in a sense. Like you're going to have to go in with an open mind when you're going into a retail space. We know that brick and mortar is kind of not the hottest thing right now, but it is something that we've had to work against. And in 2022, JCPenney did have a hardship with the B word. So since that's happened, I mean, it's really been trying to fight the perception of the B word. So a lot of that is either the perception is that one, we don't exist, two, that we are still on the way down, which has to be the complete opposite of what it is to work at JCPenney right now. I mean, we've gone through a rebrand. Since the time that I've been here, they've had a $1 billion investment into the retail stores. So that means they're really making big changes. A rebrand. So the new slogan for the rebrand is "Make It Count." And honestly, it's taking all of those things and figuring out what works best with their audience. And when I say that, it's like really putting your ear to the ground and listening to what people have to say.
So let's pull that apart a little bit because you're talking about working with a brand where it's basically a household name, at least in North America. I don't know how far JCPenney's reach is. Obviously, like I said at the outset, it's a brand I grew up with. But as you pointed out, perceptions have changed over the years. How are you approaching these kinds of challenges? What are you doing to identify? I mean, you said ears to the ground, but let's get specific here. What are you actually doing to listen to those customers and understand, what is the current perception? What does that mean? How does that impact what we're doing on social media?
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many levels to this that I think about daily. Like I go to bed thinking about this type of stuff. It's the stuff that keeps me up at night because I I truly enjoy marketing, and like I think it's so fascinating when you get down to the psychology of it. But that's just part of it. You know, there's this other part where you're strategizing, and that honestly, the things that keep me up at night motivates my strategy to be as open-minded and just open to the changes that we're doing. But honestly, the strategy that I think anybody in social could absolutely, that is going through, say, like a brand perception change, is like you have to be adaptable, you have to be resilient, you have to be innovative, authentic, and you have to be customer centric, because you have to be able to know, for one, like, okay, like what are the challenges that I'm working against? And again, brand perception is a challenge, but it's a challenge that you're able to actually overcome when you get down to it. It's just honestly really breaking down the data that we already know and that we already like have in our hands. And it's honestly being able to focus on the things that we can control. So like I said, data is always going to be there. It's always going to be that fact point that you have to learn from. And honestly, it's been it's been really fun journey to kind of navigate that, because it's like you're putting the puzzle pieces together and trying to make it seem flow like flawlessly, and almost like you have to be, again, adaptable to like what is going on in your situation. You know, when a brand like this, which is 100 and what, 21, 22 years old, there's there's so much that you have to like you have to be transparent with, and acknowledge that, you know, you might not be the trendiest brand out there, but you know what? We can still show you that we could be fun and trendy, and like we have items that are like that you're interested in, that we can offer to you, and we can offer to you at a great value.
So, could you give me an example of some of this data that you're talking about? You know, what is it? Where is it coming from? How is it informing you? And you know, maybe how you have adjusted in response. So, what kind of data are we talking about?
Yeah, I'm talking about data that your content, so like Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, Facebook. I'm thinking of all the platforms we're on.
Mhm.
I mean, honestly, I am going in and we're reporting every single week. Not every day. Every day is a little harder to see some results, but like
Yeah.
every week you're able to see, okay, like what are the impressions, what are the engagements that people, that you're learning from, that people are reacting to. So like if you're able to engage and see impressions, say like we know that promo is so big for us on Facebook. Look at the demographic that's on Facebook.
Mm.
It's those moms, it's those grandmas that love JCPenney, that are brand loyalists, and they're really connecting with those promos because they know that that's there. And like it's almost like, okay, we have, like, it's just being as simple as you can, and telling them, okay, look, we're gonna have an event, or we're gonna have a promo event that's 5 days long. Come in, don't come in, just
Mm.
it's really understanding the platform's audience as well. I think that is a really big thing. So Instagram, in your words, who do you think an Instagram audience is?
In my words, Instagram's interesting because you're going to see I think, because I'm there, a wide range
Yeah,
of individuals. I'm not a younger person by any stretch. I'm turning 50 this year, and I'm very active on Instagram. But I also know that I'm an exception in the sense that I work in
right.
social media and I have for over a decade. So I would suggest that the audience trends younger on Instagram compared to say Facebook. Not as young overall as TikTok.
Right, and that's, so again, like Instagram, you're still gonna have, say, your moms, you're gonna have moms, you're gonna have men that are like interested in supporting a family and things like that. So like the demographic is a slightly younger than Facebook, but it's not that much different. It's not.
Hmm.
And and then TikTok is very Gen Z centric, but I will not lie. My mom and my dad are on TikTok as well.
Yeah.
They're learning things and they're taking from that. I think one of the things that I learned from brand my brand days was how to really navigate or like categorize a type of content. So like I always have this thing where I'm like, you have to understand if you're with your piece of content, are you inspiring? Are
Hmm.
you entertaining? Or are you educating?
Yep.
And those are the three, and like all three of them are to engage the audience. And when I say that's like a messaging category that I've taken down to my core is because I really do sometimes look at content and I'm like, okay, what is this piece of content trying to do for me at least? Is it educating me, giving me knowledge of something? Is it giving me motivation and inspiring me to go out and buy something on Amazon or like Target? Or is it entertaining me? Like it's a meme, I relate to it. And I feel like it's so funny because for JCPenney, we kind of test and learn these memes and they do so well because
Yeah.
they're just so fun. And like when you think of, again, JCPenney, you've said it, like it's nostalgic. It's a nostalgic brand that everybody has always said, like, oh, when I grew up, I I remember the brand being this or the catalog. Like, oh my goodness, the catalogs everybody loves. And they are like, bring that back, bring that back.
Right.
So I mean, and it's definitely like I said, when you have to like listen, you have to watch, and you have to test and learn to be able to understand what your audience likes. Because I mean, honestly, I love a good test and learn environment because again, when you're going back and looking at that data, you're analyzing that based on the content that you're posting. So like and I will tell you, like I'm still trying to figure it out myself. Like I think it is very much a test and learn environment at JCPenney, which I absolutely love because it really gives you the opportunity to learn from your audience.
I'm glad you said it that way because there's a core truth there that everyone listening, whether you're in retail marketing or not, should understand. Social media should be a constant test and learn and then test and relearn environment because social media is constantly changing. It's not something you learn once and then you just do the same way over and over again for the rest of your career. That's not possible. Our audiences are changing, their behaviors are changing, the platforms themselves change, not as frequently as we think, but they do change a lot.
Mhm,
And they're almost micro societies. And it almost takes a sociologist, plus a historian, plus a computer programmer to really pull apart what's actually happening on social media because it's a complex system. And you can't talk to and communicate successfully with a complex system without changing and adapting on a regular basis. But like I mentioned at the outset, I grew up and with these catalogs being shipped to my house. I just thought it was genius because this catalog, it went to the entire household and there was literally something in that catalog for everybody. But social
mhm.
media today, a lot of people think it's this one to many marketing channel, but it's truly a one to one marketing channel. Each post is seen and read by individuals, making audience determination, targeting just this huge challenge. How have you approached that at JCPenney?
Absolutely. And I think this is such a thought out question. I love it because it is it that is such a great I guess like reflection of where we are now. But honestly, it's just focusing our strategies back to our customers, analyzing our data, and the number one thing is sticking to our values and our brand pillars. I think one of the things that we've really tried to show and feel is that we are making we're making the the products and the things that we're selling truly accessible. So like fashion, we're trying to make fashion accessible. We're doing really cool like brand collabs with different stylists and things like that where I think we're hitting those strategies where we're like trying to gain a new audience. And we're doing that by again testing and learning through these collabs. We've done collabs with influencers. We've done collabs with again stylists and we have some really cool ones coming soon, but it's been a really good opportunity to really put out a feel for like what people are interested in. And again, like sticking to our values, we truly want people to know that like you can get everything at JCPenney's. It's a one-stop shop, truly. And I think it's again being adaptive to what that looks like for everybody. And again, like it's all that to say that we just want to genuinely connect with people. And that's what we really want to show.
I love that approach. You're talking about working with influencers, you're collaborating with partners, but each time you have your core values in mind. So you're not sacrificing those for a quick win. Everything is reflected in the work that you're doing. And that's a fantastic approach. It's something I've preached off and on for years about influencer marketing, particularly. Don't work with an influencer if that doesn't reflect your values and your worldview, because that's not going to work out the way you want. So, folks, we're talking with Brianna about some of the challenges facing brick and mortar brands, particularly those who've weathered decades of change and how they're solving for social media today. And well, I've got a few more questions for Brianna that you're not going to want to miss. Let me share with you a quick story about how another retail brand is solving for social media.
Love Pop Cards is a 3D greeting card company, and we are about 5 years old, and we are based in the idea of creating magical moments. And so our company's mission is to create 1 billion magical moments. So I am the director of customer happiness, which means I'm responsible for sort of being the voice of Love Pop to our customers, and then also being the voice of our customers within Love Pop. So it goes in both directions. So before we transitioned to Agora Pulse, one of the things that was really difficult for us was that we had a high volume of ads where our customers were commenting and wanted to interact with us or wanted to tell us what they thought of the products we were advertising. And we had a limited number of licenses for our social media monitoring tool. And so we were unable to keep up with the inbox, and the inbox was actually unable to keep up with the volume of ads we were running. And so we both weren't getting all the comments that were being added to all these ads, and we couldn't reply to what we were getting anyway. So when we moved over to Agora Pulse and we got to the point where we had an inbox that captured direct messages, it captured the listening, and we were able to pull in the ad comments in the same place. We could use it just like we would use any other inbox like in our ticketing system. It's really changed our ability to follow up with customers and make sure we're being responsive and interacting with them when they want. Also, a little hidden feature that I love is that you can see the history of any customer's comments with us. So sometimes we'll get a comment and we're not exactly sure either if they were talking to us earlier or if this is somebody who has been giving us a hard time for a while. And you can just click on them and see their profile and get an idea for how they've interacted with us over time.
Speaking of nostalgic, how about sending actual physical cards in the mail? Who does that anymore, right?
Believe it or not, my grandma does.
Good for her. Good for her. I just made my oldest daughter send thank you cards to her grandparents yesterday, so they'll be tickled about that. But I want to talk about Gen Z because you mentioned them early on, and it's just I find this fascinating. How does an iconic brand like JCPenney adapt to new generations like Gen Z? What are some of the challenges and the opportunities that you've discovered by talking to that audience specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just first off, like Gen Z, can we give them a round of applause because truly they have turned social media upside down. um,
Mhm.
and they've changed it so much in the fact that I mean, we are no longer in the Instagram world where we want really pretty, like, commercial loved pictures. We're not there anymore. We are in a place where they love content to be really organic, really authentic, and really, again, something that they're going to either be inspired by, educated by, or
Mhm.
entertained by. So, this, I feel like there was a really big shift after COVID when during that time we were all on our phones. We were all reacting to COVID the same way. And I think that that has changed so much of this, like, we want social media to be perfect. And it's done such a number on all of us that I think that it has changed for the better because one, we are able to really show that authentic side of our brand, and to engage with our audience a little bit more, and I feel like in a more organic way. It honestly has, again, gone away from this perfect image. Like, we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for what's real, what's there. I mean, so UGC was like a really big thing around this time. But ever since, say, I think in the last year, employee generated content has gone up in interest almost 50%. Like, I'm not even kidding you. I just read this here recently, not too long ago, but employee generated content is what everybody wants to see now from brands. Like, everybody's doing it.
Mm.
Duolingo. We've even we've tried a little bit, and we've gotten really, really, really good interactions with it, because when you're able to see an employee say, like, come up and be funny and have a brand connection with like, you're working with within a brand, it gives a face to the people that are really coming up with the things that you're working on. And so, like, I just think it's like a really beautiful thing, because it really feels genuine and authentic to me, and I've learned so much from it. I'm, like, no longer scared to be in front of the camera when it comes to, like, content creation. And it's just it's a great thing, and I think it's a great movement that they've just been full leading through in the last couple of years. So, again, I think it just really rounds out, like, what they're wanting to see, and it gives a perception of, like, we're people too. We're not just a brand. We're a group of people that have really put a lot of love and work into our everyday lives of just working and going and feeling the brand that we love.
This is such a fascinating observation to me because, again, I grew up with this, which meant I grew up with the imagery that was in the catalogs. And if you can visualize that, you're visualizing highly polished models, photo shoots, right? There was nothing, authentic, organic at all in a JCPenney catalog in, the 70s or the 80s. So I'm wondering, how are you creating some of this content yourself today? I mean, you mentioned you're more confident now in front of the camera. You mentioned a little bit of UGC, but the organization overall, how is it going about creating this kind of authentic content?
I think it's really showcasing, and that's such a great question. I'm, like, over here thinking about this now. I think it's genuinely, like, created this dynamic where it's okay that things aren't perfect, that things
Hmm.
don't need to be fully laid. Like, you don't have to have, like, a full photo shoot to have a good piece of content. Like, and I think that's been such, I guess, like, a light bulb for everybody, because I think that, like, you're able to just push out content as you feel it. And I love going into the stores, and that's any store. I love going into any store and just taking content. I'm like, "Oh my god, this is a great piece of, like, jewelry. Like, it's a trendy jewelry piece. Like, what, like, let's see, like, how people will react to that." And honestly, it's been great. And, like, you learn so much that piece of content didn't need a whole studio team to come together and think of. It's just, like, again, being quick. And I think the other thing is like being on top of trends. Like you have to know what's going on around you in the fashion world, in the retail world, in the social world. You just have to know what are the trends that people are going to react to. And that's how you really gain the interest of Gen Z.
Fascinating. And we're going to come back to that trends in a second because I want to ask a follow-up question there. But before I get to that, I'm super curious. You're talking about posting imagery to Instagram and Pinterest in particular. How are you currently measuring the actual business impact of these kinds of posts and social media overall?
Oh, absolutely. It's on a weekly basis. It's measuring impressions, engagements, conversions, conversion rate. Trying to think of what else we really hone in on. I mean, honestly, like I said, we are working on it so closely that we you are able to see a difference when someone likes something. And so I think impressions in my sense, because every platform has different metrics that you can pull from.
Oh, yeah.
And and I've learned that like when you're able to understand the metrics on a platform, you're able to then decide what metric you're going to use in order to pull out the fact of something working or not working. So I'll give you an example. For TikTok, we've noticed like we'll get so many engagements, but not a lot of impressions. And we're figuring out, okay, like what was it? Like, I mean, it's great that we're getting engagements, but why is the impression not there? And so it's again trying to understand like, was it the piece of content? Was it the hashtags? Was it the actual content? It's like itself visually, like what was the quality like? I mean, it could be anything, and that's honestly how you can understand what's going on and what people are reacting to.
Makes a ton of sense. I'm curious what tools you're using because I know you're on a lot of different platforms. What's in your tech stack as the social media manager for JCPenney?
Oh, tech stack. I love I love listening tools. So anything that you're able to like get a feel for and really understand like what people are interested in has been really really helpful. I will say before we do any major campaigns or anything like that, social listening tool is the first thing we go and do because we want to know what the conversations around that particular topic, and we want to understand what people are saying about it. Is it worth going after that topic? Is it worth going and doing a whole campaign about it? And so I think, and that goes back to research. That's just like
Yeah.
understanding like your basic like what's the conversation around that topic. So I that is my number one. My number two. I am such a social person. And when I say social person, I'm a social media nerd. Like I will follow anything and everybody to get any type of information I can. So like I'm not scared to have following 10,000 other people while I have like 3,000 on my personal account. Like I think if you're able to see different types of content from different types of topics and things like that, I think you're able to really get an idea of what are the possibilities of content that you can create. And I think it's so fun to do that. I love that. I'm a creative person, so I love mood boarding. I love
Mm.
mood boarding, love putting my ideas all in one place because I'm a type of person that has to think through things through and have to connect the dots. So I love mood boarding. LinkedIn, I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn, LinkedIn Learning, LinkedIn anything I'm all about just because it's so It's so helpful to understand that like you're not the only person going through, say, like the same things that other people are in other industries or in different companies. And I think it's eye-opening when you see posts from different people from different companies explain, today was not a great day because we didn't get impressions. And sometimes you just have to understand that you're not the only one. You're not the only one that's having a hard time figuring out impressions on TikTok.
Right. Can I just say how much I love the fact that you included people in your tech stack? I don't know anyone who's ever said it that way before on any show I've ever been on, host, guest, or anything of that nature. But it's such an intuitive answer because we can and should rely on so many other people for so many
Absolutely.
other things. So give me a couple examples because we talked about trends earlier. Are there people or like blogs, podcast shows, or anything like that that you follow, newsletters that are helping you stay on top of trends, changes in the industry, or just they're just being fabulous resources for you?
It's so funny because I always say I am a fashion girly first. I love fashion. I love all of that entertainment. So I was always that little girl that I knew she wanted to work in marketing but didn't know how she was going to get there.
Hmm.
But I loved magazines and I love magazine cover stories because you learn so much about what people are taking in from the news and the media. And I think that's such a big thing because you will see the hottest and the latest news translate onto magazine brands and things like that. So I mean, the New Yorker, the Cut, the I'm trying to think of what else. Harper's Bazaar,
Yep, Harper.
all of yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, all of those magazine brands I love to follow because again, they're the ones that are actually going and researching all the things, all the trends that are going on. And I remember when I used to work, I've always worked in a really trending industry. And so back when I was at Tony and Guy, that was my first job out of college. I was a social media coordinator actually, and I remember one of the things I did own was blogging. And I feel like blogging is so different now, but a lot of the inspiration I got from my blogs were very much heavily centered about around the magazines that I used to read. And now I follow those on social media. And so they are always, just always like bringing out new news, new trends, they're really the ones that are rounding out all the information for me, and I love that. It's a little hack to some to the trend research, but from there, I mean, is I grab that information and I mood board. That's where my mood boards come from, and you will learn so much from a creative side as well when you sit there and open like an actual magazine versus like going and seeing it on social media. But it's still, again, like I'm very old school in that sense. I feel like everybody's like, podcasts. I always listen to podcasts. That's where I get all my information, which I do sometimes, but podcasts are more entertainment for me.
Well, that's why I love asking this question because everyone's a little bit different. I don't get a lot of information from podcasts either. I'm not really a podcast listener. I work from home. I don't have a commute. I don't have that convenient time where it's really easy to listen to something or watch a video or something like that. But I think it's awesome that you mentioned blogs. That's how I cut my teeth and got started over a decade ago. The social media had my personal blog. I was blogging about social media trends and changes in the industry. I often refer to myself as the unofficial historian of social media because I've been writing about this stuff for so long.
Long.
I know everything that happened. I know where all the skeletons are buried. That's my history. But Brana, you've been amazing. This has been such a fun conversation. I love that you've come on and shared with us all of your incredible background and perceptions on retail social media marketing. For those who want to learn more or want to connect with you, where should they go?
They should go to Vella Bray on Instagram and then tag Vella on Twitter or X. X. X.
Yeah, I know, right? It's X, it's Twitter. I don't know. Although I do know, for those of you listening, and maybe you haven't noticed this, if you use x.com, it now redirects to twitter.com. All your profiles, x.com, slash
Hmm.
Agorapulse, Mike underscore Alden, whatever, they all go to the twitter.com version. So I think they're moving towards us trying to use X more
Yes.
often. That's
Yes.
coming.
That's some of the
Folks,
I was gonna say that's the zillennial in me. I'm like, I want to call it Twitter, but it's X.
it's hard. It's hard. But folks, that's all we've got for today. Thanks so much for listening. If you haven't already, please find us on Apple, Social Pulse Podcast Retail Edition. Like us, subscribe, leave us a review. We'd love to know what you think. Until next time. Thank you for listening to another episode of Social Pulse Podcast Retail Edition. Hosted by Mike Alton and powered by Agorapulse, the #1 rated social media management solution, which you can learn more about at agorapulse.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast player and be sure to leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.